What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the Wise Tech MLB DFS Wise Stream. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I am joined once again by the GOAT, the true OG that y'all know is Paulie D. You can find him on Twitter at Paulie with 8 D's. Paulie, what's happening?
What's happening, baby?
Same old. Same old. I think it's a pretty good slate we have tonight. It's like the size, it doesn't feel too big. It doesn't feel too small. There's like a lot of options. And the chalk seems somewhat concentrated. So that makes for a really fun tournament slate. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a great slate. It's like, we don't have like that one ace up top that everybody wants. I do think there's some concentration at pitching, but lots of different spots for bats. Good day for MME. And, I like these kind of slates where you got to kind of, do the dirty work on picking your pitchers, because it's not just like, oh, go get Max Scherzer and this popular cheap guy. Like there's choices to be made at pitching, and there's a plethora of offenses. I've kind of got it narrowed down to 3 spots, really, offensively. There's like 3 that I like more than the rest that I'll probably, go to core work with. But, maybe you turn me on to something. I don't know. You already turned me on to one, and I probably didn't need much turning on. But you did die dirt for me, so that's nice.
Man, it's definitely good to know you don't have problems getting turned on. It's good. It's a happy world. It's very good. But I'm with you, bro. I agree. I think that the ownership will be concentrated in a few spots, and outside of that, there's a lot to like. So it's a good day for MME, a good day to take some shots, and because like it's not like on some days when you're looking for lower owned shit, like you end up playing like bad players, or you're attacking a pitcher that's not that bad. You're just trying to get a little different. On this slate, there's plenty of both. It's just there's neither of both. I mean, it's like you've got other pitchers that are bad against good offenses that just aren't going to get played because the other ones are. So let's do the dirty and get busy. Starting with some pitching. Talk to me.
All right. Yeah, pitching. Talking to me. Huh.
Yeah, I'm talking to you. You're like, yeah, pitching. Go ahead.
Yep. So, I don't see any way that I can afford Aaron Nola or Patrick Corbin. If you made me choose one, I would take Aaron Nola. I think that'll be the public's perception, but Washington doesn't strike out a ton, but they're not as imposing outside of really Juan Soto against a righty, where Patrick Corbin's got to run into a handful of like guys that are somewhat hot right now that also don't strike out a ton. I think Corbin has the higher ceiling. Nola is the safer play today, so take that as you will. But I really don't have much interest in either. The first guy I'm interested is like 8-3, so I got nothing up top. Besides, I think Nola's fine if you can afford him.
Yeah, I agree. I think Nola's fine if you could afford him. Neither of these teams are big strikeout teams. Both of these pitchers, Nola's having an exceptional year, but again, it's just these are two teams that you don't often see pitchers sealing out against. They're pesky. There's the off chance that Corbin, his pitch count's low, he goes in 8-9 innings and gets 9-10 Ks, just because if you go that long in innings, you're going to get a couple more Ks along the way. Or same thing happens to Nola. But I agree with you that I don't think the ceiling is there probability-wise, so I'm going to take shots with some cheaper pitching, plus a lot of bats that require some salary. So I agree with you. I think they're both fine. I prefer Nola. I agree that Nola is the safer play. I think Corbin is the more rewarding play, if you're right about that, because Corbin's going to be the lower owned of the two. And Corbin's ownership in general will be low enough that I'll have some in the MME teams, like Paulie said, a lot of shit, MME style. Other than that, Paulie, talk to me about the mid-tier.
So this is where, we got some options. I like Zach Plesac against Kansas City. They couldn't touch Bieber. I'm not aware of any major pitch counts. Maybe they pull him after 90 or something like that. If I'm wrong, let me know. But massive favorite. They couldn't touch Bieber. Plesac, looked really good before he was a dick with Clevenger. I don't know why, like, Plesac didn't get as much, backlash from that as Clevenger, who's no longer with the team. But, Kansas City's not that scary of an offense. Mostly right-handed bats that are good. He's good against righties. So he's interesting. I like Framber Valdez quite a bit. He's been awesome this year. Texas has already pretty much declared that they're tanking. They're terrible. They got rid of Todd Frazier. And I love the Houston bat. So.
That's the ultimate throw in the towel. Trade Todd Frazier. They're like, fuck team chemistry. Like, just go.
I mean, I can't believe there was a team out there that wanted him, but
Did you hear why Brody said he got him?
No, because he's a good guy.
Yeah, it said he wanted to give his the energy. So it's not even about him playing. It's about just having him in the locker room. We just want you around, man. When you were around, we were doing better. I let you go, and now we're sucking. That was Brody's mentality. So it's awesome.
Wow, I guess he's superstitious.
It must be a cool dude.
Anyway, I think Houston has, puts up a ton of runs offensively, spoiler alert, and he'll be in the position for the win. So, let's giggity. What else? The slate doesn't end there. Tanaka, this pitch count thing sucks, but if he were to get you like a 22-23, which he got you a 20 against Tampa a few weeks ago, at 7-6, you'd be all right with that. He's got a pitch-friendly umpire, one of the top pitch-friendly umps out there. I'm with it. I do prefer the option slightly more and slightly below. I don't think I need this. I'm only building 3. I don't think I get there, but I would include him in a MME situation, like at 10%, 15%, something like that. I was really impressed as Ian Anderson kid made his debut in Yankee Stadium. It wasn't the ultimate Yanks lineup. They are pretty banged up, but he looked really good. Cruised through like 5 or 6 innings, 5 or 6 strikeouts. I think he had 1 run. And Boston is not the Yankees. One problem is Joe West is umpiring this game. I don't want to make too big of a deal about that. Supposedly through this year, he's actually been more neutral than anything else. But he's notoriously one of the most hitter-friendly umpires out there. It's like a slight knock. It's not a great park, but neither was Yankee Stadium. I'm cool with that. And that's really it in the mid-tier.
Yeah, I agree on the Plesac call. So the Plesac situation is a little bit different because he didn't test positive for COVID, or his team didn't, so they weren't able to practice. Like, he was just at an alternate training site. So you got to think he was getting his work in at least. It's not like Sandy Alcantara, who hadn't touched a baseball in a month and is now like, hey, you don't have COVID? Go start for us. We're desperate. This is like, he was sitting there, you would think, working out and all that shit while he's waiting if he's going to get traded for being a dick. And it's funny that he's actually starting in place of Clevenger today, but it's a beautiful thing. But yeah, I'm with you, man. The Royals' offense not good. We have a pitching friendly park, so I'm cool with it. Framber Valdez, the only knock you really have on him is the expected ownership. I expect him to be the most popular pitcher on DraftKings, especially at his price. And unfortunately, just feel like I'm going to eat some of that because he's shown us that he's got some ceiling. His ground ball rate's like 61%, which is just elite in that category. He's striking dudes out, and he's playing the Rangers, who have been awful, and they traded Todd Frazier. So they obviously don't care about winning anymore. In all seriousness, the Rangers are like, 6 in strikeouts to lefties. WRC plus is low, everything. So I'm with you on Framber.
Out there, Joey Gallo, this lineup is just atrocious. He's lefty on left. Like, Isaiah Kiner Falefa batting third. Jose Trevino, their catcher, is batting third. Kiner Falefa's batting second. Like, it's ugly, dude.
It's ugly.
Yeah. I'm one of those guys that can find, like, any reason not to play the chalk.
Yeah, I know.
But this one, I don't know. I don't see how you don't play a little bit of it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's ugly like nutsacks. But I think, who else is there in the mid tier? The Tanaka point, I don't mind. My My only problem with Tanaka, and I didn't write him up in the article, spoiler alert, but the only reason I didn't write him up is because he has not thrown more than like 70 pitches. For some reason, they're not trying to stretch him out. They're just kind of, but like you said, how much do you actually need when Framber Valdez is the highest on? I think the biggest problem with this slate in pitching, and the reason we're not willing to pay top dollar, is because we're struggling to find ceilings. So if nobody's going to hit the ceiling anyway, then why couldn't Tanaka? Tanaka's ceiling is around 20. He could hit that ceiling. So I do think that makes sense. But yeah, Framber seems to be, I know in cash games it's pretty easy with Framber. And then we go into the value range, we've got Josh Lindblom, who will be a popular pairing. Paulie had mentioned Ian Anderson. I do like him against the Red Sox. The Red Sox, if you look at their lineup, it's just really strikeout heavy. They're another one, right? They're throwing it at Tower. They traded Moreland. There's talks about Vasquez getting traded, or I don't know if he was yet or not, but just in general, they're.
JD just hurt.
Was that?
Or not playing, not in the lineup. JD Martinez not in the lineup.
No JD. It's just. So I think that Lindblom is definitely a fair choice. He's got like a 35%. What's up?
You mean Anderson, right?
I was talking about Anderson, but I'm comparing him to the Lindblom because they're like $200 apart. So like with Lindblom. He's like a 35% strikeout rate. Everything looks fine. He's not a great park at home against Milwaukee. Against the Tigers, but in Milwaukee. But it's the Tigers, right? They strike out a ton. Number one in strikeouts in the league against righties. So I'm good with Lindblom. I'm good with Anderson. I agree with you. I like the guys that I'm not paying a ton for. One last guy I'll mention is, and I'm not going to have like a huge stance on him. I did write him up in the article. If you're looking for low ownership, is Alex Young. The Dodgers have been night and day, lefty-righty. They've been one of literally the best offense in the league against righties. And they've been a bottom half team against lefties. WRC plus under 100. ISO and WOBA way down. I think they have like a 290 WOBA or something like that against lefties. So Alex Young, I'm not really a big Alex Young guy, but his numbers this year have looked pretty good. Strikeout stuff looks legit, 25% strikeout rate. Everything looks okay. So just for low ownership's sake, but I'm with you. I like most of the guys, just not the ones that are expensive. So I have a little bit of them in the MME teams, but not a ton. Holla at your boy when you see me in the streets. What are you doing with Lindblom?
I got no interest at all. The Tigers been good offensively. I plan to probably use Tiger 3-man to leverage against him. Not that I'm not impressed, but he's just, like, I think the Tigers hit him. I have no interest, none.
Holla at your boy. I'll have a good healthy amount. Someone's gonna win.
Good healthy amount.
Oh, a good healthy amount, son. It's the Tigers. Like I have to. If I lose, because on this slate that I love, if I lose because I didn't play enough, I think the bats is where the slate is gonna get won. Is picking the right, because I think it's gonna be fairly high scoring, but I think like picking the right one, the one where you get like. Where what's that other game the other day where like everybody double donged, like you know what I'm saying? Like I feel like it's gonna be a high scoring night. So it's like, but I agree though that like the Andersons, like, there are plenty of pivots. Like he's not like you don't have to take him, and I don't think even if he goes out there and gets you like a 20 at 6.6, if Anderson can do the same for a couple $100 more, or you're just not missing out. Especially because I think that the pricing is still soft on the hitters. Like, even in cores, the entire Giants team is pretty cheap. So, I don't know. I think it's soft. Do you like any other value pitchers?
I mean, this guy's gotten a 20 once, Lindblom. Like, the guy's 10, 11, 12, 6, 10. Like, in what world is he getting you a 20 today?
I mean, if there was ever a spot to do it, this is definitely it. I mean, he has a 3.77 xFIP with a 31% strikeout rate and a 15.1% swinging strike rate. He got hurt in one of those games, and then the next game he came in, he was like limited on a pitch count. So if there was a team where he would do it, I'm not saying I definitely respect the leverage with the Tigers in a small park, but if there was a game where he was going to do it, like
15% swinging strike rate. I got to give respect to that, but from what I've seen, I haven't been impressed at all. Yeah. I didn't know he had a 15% strike rate because, the most he struck out in a game was like 8 once. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I feel
but maybe he's better than he's looked. Lefties have sort of murked his ass.
Yeah.
And those are the bats on the Tigers that I've got some interest in. Like,
yeah.
I think Victor Reyes, Heimer Candelario, Nico Goody, Kristen Stewart. They're cheap too, like a 2-man, a 3-man. Give you a little bit of leverage against a guy I don't think is really that good, but it's the Tigers. They do strike out a lot. This guy does have some metrics that say, this could be a spot. So I wouldn't say like you're crazy.
Right, exactly. It's not like I don't think it's a slam dunk, and I think we do have other pivots. Because, like, his ceiling is probably around the 20 that we're talking about, right? Realistically, it's probably somewhere between, like, 12 and 15, 12 to 16, I think is a fair, like, expected outcome. So I agree with you that that's definitely a beatable score with the other pitchers that we have. But if there was a team that he was going to have a ceiling against, it would be this one because they're number one in strikeouts.
It could be this.
Yeah.
I agree.
If he doesn't do it against them, then I don't think we should expect it from him really anytime. It's just like this is gonna be. You're playing this as these guys. Like it's like they're number one in strikeouts in the league against righties. It's like if you can't do it against them, it's like the opposite. When people say if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. What's that?
Like they've been putting up runs lately.
Oh, for sure, for sure. But they're still striking out in between. Like it's like But so at the end of the day, he can give up he can give up 4 runs today. But if he didn't get the 8 or 9 strikeouts that he should have gotten against his team, then he's this is the best it's gonna be. You know what I mean? I think.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I agree with you totally on everything else. His ownership is crazy high. The Tigers are definitely worth a leverage stack. My only point is that if there was going to be a game where people would expect to see him, this would be it.
This would be it. I agree.
Yeah, that's
I'm glad we talked that out.
Yeah, it felt good. Felt good to get it out. Are there any other cheap pitchers, or should we go on to the stacks?
I do think Woj is worth a look. Very risky. The Mets have been great offensively. There's a couple ugly names in this lineup, though, today. And he does get to striking guys out. I don't think they've ever seen him. And, I think it's worth a look. He's cheap enough that it could pay. Not a great park. I don't love it. I'm not really, making a strong argument for it, but I do think he's usable today. But that's it, Mike.
Another one that would provide leverage. I do think the Mets could end up being fairly popular because the guy like McNeil is 3,400 on DraftKings. They're not like they're a pretty easy team to stack. A 10.5 run total that's gone up from I think it was 9.5 at open. So yeah, I think that could at least provide some leverage for those who are wondering. And yeah, I don't remember the last time the Orioles and Mets played each other. I don't not remember that.
Yeah.
I don't know how long ago it's been. Anyway, Paul, let's get into the bats.
All right, yeah, this is really where the slate's gonna be won. Yeah, I mean, there is one pitcher I do want to talk to you about later, though. So the Houston Astros will be the team I have the most of. We've identified Jordan Lyles as a guy we want to target. We got robbed of him against the A's, I think, about a week ago because of Dirty Cops, I think it was. I forget exactly, but he's back today against the Astros, a team that people really have not been using. They're a little beat up. They do have a high run total, so I don't think they're going to be like sneaky, but they do not project to be very high owned. Jordan Lyles has almost a 7x FIP, a 5.8 swinging strike rate, meaning he is not missing bats. He's walking 11% of the guys he sees, so he's putting guys on. He is getting murked by righties to the tune of a 370 ISO and a 500 WOBA. Every other guy gets on base against him so far this year. Granted, it's only 120 at bats, but that's a quarter of the season or so, maybe a fifth of the season. And he's basically just throwing 2 pitches, 92 mile per hour fastballs and 80 mile per hour curveballs. Let's see how the profile shakes out on the curveball. Springer murks it. Altuve hits it. Brantley murks it. Gurriel hits it. Carlos Correa murks it. And then I can't imagine they don't murk 92 mile per hour fastballs. Yeah, they all hit that well. Kyle Tucker's been red fucking hot. This guy's a monster. Play him in the Astros stacks. I'm going to have a ton of Astros today. That being said, there are a couple other stacks I like too. I looked at the Yanks and I'm always like into them. And I actually kind of respect Trevor Richards, but you brought up a really good point that, he's going to be throwing changeups to righties. He's a reverse splits guy. Luke Voigt's red hot. Gary the GOAT hit a game-winning grand slam, not a game-winning grand slam, but a grand slam the other day. He's been pretty hot the last 2 to 3 weeks. You got Clint Frazier batting cleanup, who's been doing nothing but hitting. Gio Urshela, all these righties, DJ LeMahieu, they're going to give this guy trouble in Yankee Stadium today. I really like the Yankees. I'm glad you kind of brought that into the horizon because I do actually think Trevor Richards is good, but a lot of that was masked by like pitching and good ballparks in the National League with pitchers hitting, and this is not that today. This is a really, it could be worse. Stanton and Judge could be there, but the Yanks got a lot of good pop there in this park the ball's been carrying, so I do like that quite a bit as well. And then I'm kind of torn actually now on the last two because I didn't really have the Yankees in. I was just Houston, Cleveland against Matt Harvey, and the White Sox against Pineda, which, it's either going to suck or they'll go off for 12 runs. I don't think there'll be much in between. They're either going to tear into him and then rip apart the bullpen, or he's, pretty untouchable. And, Michael Pineda, you really never know what you're going to get, but it's either one or the other. You know what I mean? So now with falling in love with the Yankees, I'm kind of wrestling between, do I get off attacking Matt Harvey or do I get off attacking Pineda? I'm kind of leaning. The problem is I really like the White Sox offense. So I like, it's easier for me to want to play them. The Indians, Fran Miller, GOAT, yeah. Tyler Naquin I do like. And, then you just throw Lindor, J-Ram. But, I guess I'm leaning Indians a little bit more. So those are like the 3, 4. And then there's a couple cheap offenses like the Tigers and the Orioles that I plan to kind of tie it all up with to make things fit with their, cheap 3-mans.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of you said, man. First of all, the Astros, it was a shame that we got. There's an opener, for Jordan Lyles, which is disappointing. But I feel like we're lucky enough that he's even getting another appearance. I feel like we're truly lucky. Yeah. That's how bad he's been. So I'm with you on the Astros. Followed by regardless of what happens with Lyles, there's a terrible bullpen after him anyway. So I like that. The Yankees, like you'd mentioned, I agree with you on Richards. We talked about that before the show. Dude's throwing changeups. That's his deal. Changeups are not as effective when you're throwing them to guys with the same handedness of you. This is the one situation where this Yankees lineup kind of works out the way that it is. I think Gary the GOAT goes yard. Small park. Richard's been playing in Miami. He's been playing in Tampa. He's had all these big parks. I'm not saying I agree with you that I think he's decent. And there's going to be situations, and there was in the past. We played him several times, and he was in those situations, and he's done well. I just don't think this is one of them. I like the Mets. I'm disappointed to see that they're going to be a little popular, but I do like really both offenses in this game. But the Mets I would put ahead of them, obviously, going up against Asher Woj, who gives up a ton of fly balls. One thing that's interesting about the Mets, and to keep in mind that this is a team that plays at Citi Field, which is a pretty big park, pretty pitcher-friendly type park. One thing about the Mets, they have a 121 WRC plus against righties this year, which is pretty good, really good. They have a 345 WOBA, which is one of the highest against righties. Where they lack is the ISO. They're like 170. And I think that if we take some of that WOBA action, and they don't strike out a lot, right? They're like 21.7% against righties. And we put it in a small park like Baltimore, I think we could see some goodness. I agree with Paulie that after the 7-8-9 is ugly. Right, you're looking at the lineup. The 7-8-9 is ugly. But I like the 1 through 6. I don't mind the Jimenez kid because he's got speed. So I don't mind somebody who could make up some of that with. Yeah. And the thing is, he's really cheap. I just don't know if we need. Like, you got McNeil at 3,400. I just don't know. But I do like the Mets. I was on the fence with the Indians. I won't do the other ones, but I'll talk to you about the Indians because I did actually. They were, we were at the 5 stacks in the article. I did get rid of the Indians after initially having them. So I want to attack Matt Harvey. But I agree with you in that when I look at this Indians lineup, in this ballpark, it just didn't grade out as well as some of the other spots. That was kind of my hang up. I mean, we've got Coors with John Gray, who's been struggling. We've got, not to mention the Giants have hit him well already, even when he wasn't struggling. The guys, and we've got the spots, like you said, even the Pineda situation. Pineda has not pitched in a game. He threw 70 pitches in his bullpen session. So what's that going to look like? Pineda is all or nothing. He's either striking out 8 dudes with those 70 pitches, or he's giving up 3 home runs. That's Michael Pineda. And the White Sox are that team, right? Either they're striking out against a righty fucking X amount of times, or they're hitting bombs, all of them. So there was just a ton of teams. There's a lot of offenses. It was a really fun slate for MME, but it was hard for me to put the Indians in a top 5. So I agree with you. One interesting situation. So the Brewers against Fulmer looks good on paper. What's interesting to me is they're playing a ton of lefties, but Daniel Norris, I believe, and I guess they don't have to, but Daniel Norris is slated to be the long reliever here, who's a lefty. So I was a little surprised. Maybe they don't have a choice because all their guys that are available are left-handed, but the Brewers have a shit ton of lefties. I have no interest in Norris, but I wanted, I thought, hey, it's the Tigers, right? We hit up Fulmer, he's been ass. Norris coming in, fly ball dude. I was just a little surprised with the lineup they put out. Do you have any interest in the Brewers?
Nah, son.
What about the Orioles against Eduardo?
I do.
Yeah.
I don't expect Gerardo to last very long. He's I wasn't this guy's a scrub. I actually used him a few times positively last year. But first of all, I just love taking offense in Baltimore's park. And this all Baltimore offense, has been surprisingly good. Anthony Santander is a legitimate stud hitter. Confused about the Jose Iglesias batting third thing. Someone's gonna have to get that explained. But I like Francisco. I like Ryan Mountcastle, Rio Ruiz if you need a really cheap guy. So I don't mind them as a 3-man. But I just built a lineup, and it was Gary the Goat, 5 Astros, 2 other Yankees with Framber, and 6-6 left, went right to Josh Lindblom, so I'm gonna have to suck it up and play him because that line is good. And I didn't even need the value really, it was a bunch of those guys are freakishly cheap. Gary the Goat's only 4.3. Hicks on the Yankees is 3.9. What do you call it? The third baseman, Gio Urshela, was under 4K. And the Astros aren't that much more expensive either. So, I guess if I want on one of my teams to kind of go grab a Nola or a Corbin, then I'll, have a value pivot. But you almost don't need it if you're not planning to spend up.
And that's exactly why I think that Framber and Lindblom are going to be extremely popular, because you could build some really dirty teams. And so one of two things happens. Either the right build is to spend the money at the pitching position to force you on that cheap shit that nobody's playing, or you just got to have the right offense, right? If the chalk goes well, people play Coors with Lindblom and Valdez. Valdez and Lindblom both do well enough, and then Coors is mediocre. You're going to see high scores at the min cash. But if you can find that team that's going double donging and putting up 30s at each position, the Cleveland did it one night. We've seen the Cubs did it one night, where guys are just double donging every day. There was one game, I think the Cubs played against the Reds, where there was Hayward double donged, fucking Schwarber double donged. It was literally 4 players hit 2 home runs. It was just wild. And it could be that kind of night tonight where you need that to win.
Do you have any interest in the Cubs?
Yes, I do actually. They're one of the teams. I left them out going through. I'm in a weird spot, but they were one of the teams that did make the article. I do like the Cubs against Chad Kuhl. I think Anthony Rizzo's got great history at just park. Aside from that, Chad Kuhl fucking sucks. Let's come on. Come on. Yeah. It's Chad Kuhl.
In that same game, what about John Lester against Pittsburgh?
I don't like to pick on Pittsburgh with lefties. Unless it's an elite lefty. If it was a real good lefty, like a Chris Sale type lefty, yeah, sure, no fucking problem. But Lester, I think, is just garbage. But, again, his ownership is going to be fucking, crazy low. And the Pirates suck. Lefty or righty or not. They're better against lefties, but they're still not a good team. You know what I mean? But I for
Right.
one, think that game goes over, so I expect the Pirates to score some runs personally. But I respect the ownership. It's like looking for that. You're like, I think Corbin's the one. Like, if I'm going to look for a spend-up guy at lower ownership, Corbin's the guy that I would do it with. You know, because if you're going with Nola, it's okay, but you're not on an island with that. So I think Corbin is the one. If I wanted to kind of be on an island and have a different build and all that stuff together, he'd be the one.
Okay. All right. I can dig it.
Dirty style.
But, as we're talking this thing out, I think, like, forcing yourself up there to a pitcher that, on the beginning of the show, I told you I had no interest in, could be the difference. Because if half the field's going to have Lindblom's 10, then maybe Patrick Corbin's 25 is what sets you apart. And you just really need to get, like, one value bat, like one punt bat, and you're there. You know what I mean?
And there are plenty of them. Like, there are plenty of value bats to pick from. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
It could be. It's interesting. I'm not going to do a ton of it, but I made sure to have some. I want like that 10 to 20% of those type of people, like the Corbins, in case it does happen. Because it only takes one team. So if that's what I was doing wrong, in those teams, I would presumably have those value plays worked in there, at least the ones that I liked. So I agree. It's definitely a possibility. I mean, like the Phillies don't strike out. They're one of the least strikeout friendly teams in the league. But sometimes you see situations where if they're just not hitting him well, but they're making contact, his pitch count is he got like 70 pitches through 7 innings, and like he's gonna get somewhere between a strikeout to 2/3 of a strikeout per inning, like on average. So if he just goes distance, he's gonna end up with some, I would say, as many strikeouts as he goes innings. And on DraftKings, that's important because if he ends up going the distance to a complete game, then he could break a slate. And, if everybody else is sitting with, like you said, 10 or 15 from Lindblom and, 20 from Framber, and you're getting a 30-something from your pitcher or 40-something from your pitcher, that's kind of a big deal. So having a little bit of those guys, I think, makes sense for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's just banking on a complete game type situation, probability-wise. It just, it's hard.
No, I don't do that.
Exactly.
I think you need that.
Yeah, but you got to have some. Because it is a possibility.
You gotta have 7 innings. Gotta have like 7 strikeouts.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah. You got to have room for dirties one way or another. Always got to have
fucking
room.
toxin like that.
Always.
Just play the Astros.
For show, all day. Nation, if you have any questions, get them in there. In the meantime, me and Paulie are gonna do some home runs. Paulie, who's going yard?
Kyle Tucker.
Sweets. All right, I'll take Gary Sanchez.
Ooh.
I had to do it, bro. That's why I said sweet. I thought for sure it was either Sanchez or an Astro. I knew it. I was either Sanchez or Astro. So.
I'll take Yuli Gurriel.
All right. I'll go with Anthony Rizzo.
And I'll take Franmil the GOAT.
Franmil the Goatee. I love it. Against the Dark Knight. The man formerly known as the artist formerly known as the Dark Knight. I will take I'll go with Springer. You left me an Astro. I'll take him. I'll go with Springer. I'm Springer. Let's see if there's any questions up in the chat. Tony A says Corbin I've seen at 1%. Yeah, depending on where you look, I've seen him projected pretty low. Malakar says, where is everyone? And I agree. Where is everyone? It's a very good question. It's like, people are with us, just maybe not so active in the chat. Alberto is very active in the chat. He says, Yankees, daddy, are the Rays. He says, Yankees are overrated. Besides Voit or LeMahieu, I don't like anyone else. They are banged up. You got to cut them some slack. They are banged up. They're missing Judge, missing Stan. Judge alone is worth like 2 or 3 players on a lot of these major league teams. I got a question for you, though, Paulie, with the Yankees. I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that when pitchers go to New York, they seem to not... Is it like the park that big of an impact, or do you think it's something with the pitching staff?
The park.
I mean, it is definitely a hitter's park. But you notice that like Paxton, all these guys come there, and all of a sudden, like, they're still good, but they're not as good as they were. Park City.
That weren't getting out, in Houston, doing Yankee Stadium. Garrett Cole was giving up home runs left and right last night.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. it's one of the best hitting parks in baseball. And on top of that, the Yankees have such a good bullpen, so the pitchers never go very good.
Yeah.
Like as soon as they get in any trouble, we take them out, and they never get to really live to throw those 7, 8, 9 inning games. You know what I'm saying? So
100.
It's a couple things. It's the park mostly, in my opinion.
100. Alberto,
there's not enough time. Especially with Corona to say like it was the Yankees system or pitching coaches on it. They haven't had enough time with Garrett Cole to ruin him yet. You know what I mean? He's the same guy he was, but he's getting hit a little more. He's still really good,
right?
But he's going to get hit a little more.
Right.
It's Yankee Stadium. Balls go out.
Balls do go out.
Garrett Cole, Cy Young winner in Met Stadium.
Oh yeah, no, it's true. It's true. And I obviously I would have hated to see DeGrom leave the Mets, especially right across town. But it would be interesting. That would be the ultimate test. So put Jacob DeGrom in Yankee Stadium, see how he does. With that said, one more question I think I saw from Alberto once again. What are your thoughts on the San Francisco at Coors or the Dodgers versus D-backs? So I guess on those two.
Yeah, good questions actually. So Coors. I just like the other spots better. And I honestly respect both these pitchers a little bit. Gray kind of rounded a little bit back into form last start, shows some signs of his former self. I don't have any problems with attacking him, but I do just prefer the other offenses we've already discussed. And then Gausman I do have some respect for too. But I wouldn't be shocked if a couple of them got there. But I don't like really going to Coors if I don't have to. And the Dodgers just have not been good against lefties. I've used lefties, questionable lefties, against them various times. And if you put a gun to my head, I would actually say I'd rather use Alex Young than the Dodgers bats today. I just said that on the air.
Expect a text from Joey if you see this. Expect it. But I do agree with that. I like the Giants today. I do like the Giants against Gray. Gray's velocity is coming back up. So there may be a point, Paulie pointed it out last time, that there may be a point where we see Gray kind of go back to where he was. My thing is, even when Gray was at his best, he still kind of struggled against the Giants. And it's certain guys that have been on this team, guys like Brandon Belt, etc.
Yeah.
So I like the Giants offense, but and I agree with Paulie on the Dodgers. I'm just not really into it. I think they're night and day, lefty righty. Maybe today's the day, but like lefty righty, they're night and day. And I would rather pitch Alex Young today. And it's more so because we have a ton of offenses. I think the pitching is where we're kind of like, I could use another guy to think about. Only because as much as we like Framber and Lindblom, we know their ownership is massive. So it's like, well, what can I do? Well, this guy is around there. I kind of need a pivot. Well, the offenses, you don't need them. Like you don't need the Dodgers. Like there's just a ton of offenses to like. Get dirty with them. Be filthy, nasty. I don't see any other questions. So I guess with that said, Paulie, anything in closing before we get up out of here?
No, do the dirt. Play the Yanks and the Astros. It's really easy to build a team with them combined. And let's make it rain.
Dirty burgers for day. For Paulie D, for myself, the entire White Steak Nation, as always, good luck.